seconds.
Waiting on the red light to come on, green light.
I'm waiting for the green light to come on.
I like those things you said.
You got a council member coming in too.
There she is, she made it.
Wait a minute, I didn't mean to do that.
Let's practice.
It's practice run.
Yeah, 15 seconds.
What is this?
That's for Greg, I bought that first one. So we can see. I got new eyes. I spent 12 grand for new eyes. This is on a construction site, they charge you 15.
It is 7 p.m. and council will come to order. We do have a quorum. In just a minute, I will ask you to stand. You'll be led in an opening prayer by myself. Followed by that, remain standing, and we'll say pledges to the American flag and the Texas flag. Would you please stand? Gracious God, we are indeed thankful for the manifold blessings that you bestow upon us, the opportunity to live in such a free nation, the opportunity to live in a town that provides great services for us and our citizens, and the opportunity to deliberate one with another to better our community. We ask for your wisdom tonight as we deliberate, that we might be patient with each other's opinions, that we might be enlightened by your Spirit, and that we might conduct the business of the town in a fashion that we all would be proud of. We ask, Father, for your special blessing upon those first responders, not only in Trophy Club, but surely in Texas and around the United States, who come under such pressure just to do their job. We ask for your wisdom to be with them, your patience to be with them as they're placed in difficult situations, and of course your protection. All these things we do ask in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Mayor Pro Tem Rowe will lead us in the pledges.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
You may be seated. Citizens' presentations. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the council on any matter, whether or not it is posted on the agenda. The council is not permitted to take action on or discuss any presentations made to the council at this time concerning an item not listed on the agenda. The council will hear presentations on specific agenda items prior to the council addressing those items. You may speak up to 4 minutes or a time limit determined by the mayor or presiding officer. To speak during this item, you must complete the speaker's form and indicate that includes the topics of your statement. Topics of presentation should be limited to matters over which the council has authority. Holly, I see that we had one person sign up,
yes, ma'am,
and that is Mrs. Alice Murphy. Alice, would you come forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. Alice Murphy, 101 Seminole Drive. I'm the president of Trophy Club Women's Club, so I just wanted to give you a very brief update where we stand with the Veterans Memorial. We have approximately $30,000 left to spend. We are communicating with a woman who has worked for the Boy Scouts to design some sort of a statue that will go with keeping in lines with the Veterans Memorial. It could be anything from a service dog, not a basset hound, but police dog, fire dog, whatever. Possibly a statue of a female soldier. It just depends on what it cost, and we don't know yet. But we were given a $10,000 donation by a citizen here in Trophy Club who wants it to go to honor his deceased father. So we were lucky in that account. I don't know when we'll get an answer back from the designer, but until we know what she charges, we don't know what we're going to have. But I just wanted to keep you on the loop. Also, the garage sale's coming up October the 28th. From this garage sale, we raise money to go to our scholarships to the Byron Nelson students. This last spring, we gave away $5,000 to Byron Nelson students, to 8 students. So buy your permit, sell your stuff, tell your neighbors about it. December 3rd is the annual holiday home tour. Last year, we raised approximately $25,000, and we gave that away to local charities such as Meals on Wheels, the Food Pantry, cancer support groups, animal-assisted therapy groups. So we try to keep it in the community to serve women and children in Northeast Tarrant and Denton County. So I know the days of garage sale and the day of home tour, it can be aggravating for some, but it's an opportunity for the community to come together to raise funds to do good for people in the community and people near the community. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak at this time? Seeing no one seeking the floor, we will move on to item number 1, announcements and reports. Receive the town manager classes update regarding the following discussion and provide input regarding same, Pet Fest, staffing, and town hall. Town manager class.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Just wanted to update you on Pet Fest to start. It's scheduled for Saturday, September 16th at 9 a.m. We currently have 20 vendors scheduled to come to the event, and we expect, as we always have, a very good turnout. With regard to staffing, Police Department is still down 4 positions. Chief Arata convened an interview panel last week to interview several candidates, and he's in the process of determining their suitability at this point to go on to a background phase. Likewise, the Fire Department has 1 vacancy. Chief Carroll also convened an interview panel last week, is in the process of looking at the candidates that were forwarded to him for suitability as well. We anticipate that we're going to post the Animal Control Public Service Officer position next week. Also, the last remaining administrative assistant position should be posted next week as well. And the Parks Department filled their last vacant position this week with the onboarding of a landscape maintenance technician. With regard to Town Hall, the construction is beginning to wind down. I'm happy to report Steel Freeman has estimated that the building is about 95% complete at this point. The entire IT infrastructure is up, I'm happy to say, running. They conducted their first test of the computer system this week, so we're very pleased about that. We're scheduled for the installation of our phone system next week, which is another milestone for us. Staff's working closely with the contractor right now on several punch list items for Town Hall, and we are hoping within the next couple weeks that we'd be ready for a CO for the building. With that in mind, we've tentatively set a date of September 8th to begin a move. We're working with various vendors and our moving company, and would hope to begin the move on Friday the 8th, complete the move on Monday the 11th, and be somewhat up for business is our hope. With that, I'll take any questions.
Anybody have any questions about those items?
Yeah, I have a question. So will the phone number split at that point? Do you have that planned?
It's split from the numbers that we have now.
Right.
Yes, we're going to have, we've already had a whole series of new numbers assigned. And what we will be doing for a 6-month period of time, if the old number is called, it will go to the new number. We have sequential numbers that will start, I believe, at 2,900 and work their way through. It'll all be assigned by departments.
Okay.
Anybody else have questions about those items? All right. We'll go to item 2, receive town council liaison update, discussion of same, Park and Recreation Board at a meeting August 21st, 2017, and the council liaison is Councilmember Schaffner.
Yeah, last night the Parks and Rec Board met. I had Holly, I emailed you 2 documents, and I think Holly actually printed them up. There were basically 3 agenda items, 2 that we will never see. One was the gate fees at Trophy Club Park, which I provided the pass out that they gave last night, which kind of is a breakdown of the last year of different fees and things. Park Board just decided to keep that the same, seeing as we're about to break even for the first time in a long time. And then the renaming of Independence East, they decided to just keep that Independence Park and East and West. They did suggest that we put more wayfinding signs as far as number of fields this way, number of fields this way, which I think is probably a good suggestion. One item that will possibly come to us probably at the next meeting is the renaming of the community pool. I'll defer to the Parks and Rec Board to explain that when they come, because it was interesting conversation last night. I'm not sure if we will decide to move it forward, but they were directed, or they made a motion to bring it to us to make a decision whether or not we want to move that forward for a name change. Also of note, Bill Rose gave a citizen's presentation about adding an additional bocce ball court, and I passed out his presentation that he gave. After the meeting, I spoke with Tony and Tom and Bill, and Parks and Rec Department, they think that they can do that in-house. The last time that the two were built, they sent it out for bid, and it was relatively expensive. I'm not sure exactly what we spent back then. Maybe about 25,000 is what, yeah. So they think that they can do that in-house, and so I've kind of challenged Tom to see if perhaps there's money in this year's budget to go ahead and do that. If you look at their numbers, they have been increasing throughout the years, and it's become a pretty popular activity. And so they've already kind of laid out a course. They actually had a temporary course that they used this year that, you know, the balls could go out and everything. They didn't have the borders and everything, but I've sort of challenged the Parks and Rec to bring us something back, perhaps accomplishing that with this year's budget if there's funds available. So we'll see. That's it.
Thank you, Philip. I just want to say thank you, at least for me. That's the first time I've seen statistical data like I'd really like to see
that's
for
nice.
not only Trophy Club Park, but looking at the number of players in
Yeah.
bocce ball.
Yeah, that's nice.
It's obvious when you look at it, it's a popular thing happening.
Yeah, it's gotten bigger every year.
So, great
And Trophy
thing.
Club Park has done pretty good. I mean, you can see that the ATVs, those type of things are coming back. So I think it's down, what, about 1,000 something on that sheet to break even.
Yeah,
So,
we expect we'll break even though if we stay at the same pace.
yeah.
All right, thank you. So item number 3, receive an update from the council subcommittee that was tasked to review council chambers, public art, decorations, furnishings, and foyer or the council chambers. I provided a update for you. It's at your dais. It was a quick thing I did this afternoon. It has not been seen by either of the subcommittee other than when they got here. And if there are any mistakes, I will not be surprised by that. But it will at least let us report a little bit on what we've done. Probably the most significant thing that we looked at was as trying to satisfy what we wanted to do with allowing for our schools to display public art that they are doing is where would we put it, that it's visible and safe. And it was a quick kind of situation that if we had moved the dedication plaque to a different place, we had more space, we had more wall space, it was a little safer in the sense if something was on an easel or a podium. So if I speak out of line, any of my members of the committee, please correct me. But I think we felt good that if we moved the plaque to the other side, if you were facing the council member's office, it's on the right on the wall is where we were proposing to put it. You don't think people are going to go look at the plaque every day, so is that a problem necessarily? So that's one of the suggestions that we are making. We also noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, is that council office didn't have any of the frosted overlay at that time. And I don't know if it was supposed to or not, but you were going to kind of follow up on that.
Yes, we've already done that, and it'll be frosted.
Okay. We reviewed several pictures of benches. What was overlooked in purchasing furniture was something either for the foyer or for the waiting area that I'm calling outside the service waiting area. So right outside the court clerk window, right outside permitting, there's a nice big wall in an area, but there's no furniture that was provided for that. So we're thinking some benches. It's possible that we have some extra chairs that could go there as opposed to benches. And so we've asked Jonathan to give us a few more pictures, and we'll try to decide how that looks and what we want to do in the foyer. We even discussed, do you want a center seating area in the foyer? We weren't quite sure about that, but that's some of the things that were discussed about that type of thing of furniture. We discussed the council chambers. We went in and looked at it. The consensus seemed to be that because now if we try to take pictures with someone with a proclamation or giving them something, you've got this backdrop behind us, which is partly the dais, and so you can't really see everybody if you have just a few people to take the picture of. And so it might be nice to move the flags and move the seal to a different part of the room, and then have that wall behind the dais be something different. So we're actually recommending that. We tried to pick a place where the seal and flags could go. If you were standing facing the dais out in where the people would sit, it would be on your left, and it would be more towards the entry door as opposed to the dais. As Tom pointed out to us, like at the FBI building, they have a place for pictures that has the seal and the flags. So it allows you to go over there, take the picture, not disturb other things if you want to do so. And we seem to like that idea, and I think everybody kind of came down on that. You might be making a decision, well, do you want to have two sets of flags? So if they're over to the side, does that mean you have no flags behind you? But you'll see a picture that that's the case if we do it. So in doing that, moving the seal from behind the council that's on the wall to the side, all of a sudden said, well, I have a blank wall. And so one idea we had was some block channel cut letters. You can see an example of that in Lafayette, Louisiana. Schaffner found several places that kind of showed how that might look, and so we've asked for some design aspects of font to decide upon and some sample letters. Maybe we'll have that at the next meeting, and then you can be making a decision if you want to, what you maybe want to do, if you want to put some type of name on there. The committee said just put Town of Trophy Club across the top, and make sure it's high enough that it's not affected by the heads of people. One of the things we noticed when we took pictures of the current wall, that because of an overhang of wall above the curved wall that's curved the opposite direction, it creates a shadow at the top of that wall. So you can only go so high or you hit the shadow. So that was one of the recommendations that we're making. Then we were looking for places to have pictures mounted on the wall that said, here's the past mayor since the beginning of the town, here are the past councils since the beginning of the town. And so we were looking at one side of the AV booth on the wall putting the mayors, and on the other side putting the council. We had already started trying to collect pictures of everybody. Right now we're missing pictures of all the council. The only picture we had two pictures we don't have, but I don't think it's going to be a problem getting. One is the first mayor, and then one of Mayor Engelbeck. But I've sent him an email, I just haven't heard back from him, trying to get a picture. We haven't found any at this point in our archives, but we just got a bunch of information from the 30th celebration, and so that's what we were planning to do also in the wall. We also said, because there's so much wall space in the council chambers, and that we've got some very talented people that live in town that take some beautiful pictures, that we really think that we could begin to collect some high-quality pictures of nature and the town, get them reproduced in either a very glossy type print, or use the technology that's not very expensive, and that is you print it on canvas. It's like an inkjet printer that prints on canvas, and it looks like it's an oil painting. So I don't know the cost of any of this at this point, but the idea is we would use those pictures and have enough that you could rotate them. It wouldn't necessarily be the same pictures. And those same pictures might be used in other places in the building if you wanted to use that kind of thing. Then I mentioned the services waiting area needing some stuff. had been trying to obtain a Medlin barn door from Roanoke. Currently, they have 3. I guess they don't own the doors because what we've been told is that the person who lets them have the doors is not sure they want them to go to Trophy Club. So given that, we still think that in that area we might have a historical aspect. We've got a number of things that came from when we gathered information of our 30th celebration. So we think we can make a nice history display where maybe items change over time, and it would be in that area outside of permitting and courts clerk, which has a very large wall. And we actually have about 4 aerial photos of early Trophy Club. And so we plan on putting an aerial photo of the current Trophy Club on that wall that would be right outside of permitting. And then you've got plenty of space to put some smaller that would have the history maybe of Trophy Club. We also talked about that we'd like to have an aerial photo, maybe not as big as what you put other places, but in the council chambers. The council conference room. So if we were in the conference room, you want to see what the town looks like or talk about a street or an area, you have a point of reference there to do that. And the other thing that's missing is throughout the building, there's lots of whiteboard area that's part of the dirt walling stuff. Well, I think we bought, and it's not that whiteboard, but we had a whiteboard that actually did hook to the internet, that you could capture things that you wrote on it. So having a whiteboard in that room, I think, would be helpful, especially if we're going to meet in there periodically or other people meet in there. And so that was an area that we talked about was maybe needed. I think that covers of it. So Philip and Alicia, any comments you have, any things I've missed? Because I probably have missed things. Okay.
I do have some preliminary mock-ups of the signage that I can email out later this evening.
Okay, great. So the plan is for our next meeting, we'll bring some of this stuff back to you. We'll have some financial figures, at least some guesses at some of it to make some decisions about as we move forward. Our next meeting will be here, even though you just heard that the fact that the staff will move before we have that meeting. So, but we're going to have our next 2 meetings in this building, and our first meeting would be the first meeting of October that we have in the new building. Just trying to make sure everything's done before we get there. Any other questions about that? Thanks, Alicia, for bringing that up. All right. If there are no questions, we will move on to the consent agenda. All matters listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the town council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. We have items 4 through 8. Does any member of the council wish to remove any of those? Hearing no one seeking the floor, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda of items 4 through 8.
Make a motion we approve consent agenda items 4 through 8.
Do you have a second? Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Rowe, seconded by Kurtz. All in favor, show your hands. All opposed, same sign. It is unanimous. It is 7:24, and we will move into public hearing. Conduct the first public hearing for the proposed tax rate for fiscal year October 1, 2017 to September 30th, 2018, and mayor to announce the date and time, place of the vote of the tax rate. So the proposed not-to-exceed rate that has been set prior to tonight for fiscal year 2018 includes an ad valorem tax rate of .468 cents per $100 evaluation. And that represents a half-cent tax rate decrease above what it was this current year. The effective rate for fiscal year 2018 is .451442 per $100 valuation, and the rollback rate is .4836202 per $100 valuation. The September 30th, September 30th is the day that we're going to vote?
I think it's September 26th.
That seems late.
September 26th.
Oh, that's saying what the year is. I'm looking at the wrong thing. Okay. When's the date we're going to vote?
September 26th.
All right. September 26th, at the council meeting, we will set the rate and vote on the budget. Anybody wishing to speak or ask questions during the public hearing on the tax rate or the budget? All right. Hearing none, we will then close the public hearing at 7:25 and go to item 10, case SP-AMD-17-02, Beck Elementary Edition. Consider and take appropriate action regarding a request to amend the approved site plan, landscape plan elevations for Beck Elementary School, generally located west of Parkview Drive and south of Independent Park West. At this time, I'm going to ask Lisa Payne, I had to think a second because she changed her last name, for any report that she has from the P&Z meeting.
At the P&Z meeting, things went rather smooth with this item. The discussion included appreciation that this is not portables. Just want to make sure you all realize this is not portables. This is for a permanent addition to the building. And this addition is also going to double as a storm shelter. They also discussed the replacement of a few trees that need to be removed and also the possibility of future expansion. It looks like after this, there will be one more place for future expansion. The reason that it wasn't, that things weren't built out before is because the ratio of kid per teacher was changed. And so now they're having to create more space so that there's less kids per classroom. On the building itself, the exterior materials will fit right in with what's already there. It's going to be same colors, same materials. There's going to be extra HVAC units added, but those are going to be screened by a wall that's brick to match the building that's over 4 feet tall. As far as the trees, there's 3 Chinese pistache that need to be removed because of the grading change, and that's because the building is now that much closer to the parking lot. And so when it was more of a gentle slope before, now it's a much more steep slope. Because of that, they're on their sidewalk that goes to the parking lot that's adding stairs. But on these 3 trees, they all happen to be 5-inch trees, 5-inch caliper. You have to be at least 6 caliper inches to be protected. However, the applicant is willing to put in another Chinese pistache as well as 4 ornamental trees, 2 for each canopy tree. The reason for that is that with the Chinese pistache, there is an area with a gentler slope that they can move that tree over to or replace it. And with the other 2, there is actually a sewer line, I believe that it is. Yeah, storm sewer line that currently runs underneath where this addition will be. So they're having to reroute it around the building. And now it's where all the trees are. And so actually in our code of ordinances, and then also just preferred by MUD, it's very common for us to allow for ornamental trees rather than canopy trees. In addition, the only last thing is that they are just looking for approval for their LED lights, which match the existing. They're flush with the fixture. They're fully shielded, pointed directly at the ground. And civil plans have been approved by the town engineer.
All right, thank you. P&Z, did you have any comments?
No, sir.
All right. Mr. McClure, did you want to make any comments?
No, sir.
All right. This time, I would entertain a motion to approve the request for an amend to the approved site plan, landscape plan, elevations for Beck Elementary School, case SP-AMD 1702.
I so move.
All right.
Second.
So Mayor Pro Tem Rowe moved, and it was seconded by Councilmember Jensen. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, I had a few questions. Why are they adding an access gate and removing the one on the street?
That was actually a question that I had when I was looking at the building plans yesterday. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, my guess is that the access gate is just shown in the wrong location, and that there's no access gates that are actually being added.
I don't think we have an access
There's an
gate.
existing one there.
Yeah, and the
it's
existing one is actually
on the street.
more on the property line, just so you can't come in right off the street. On these plans, it shows 2 sets of access gates that are within the parking lot. And that was something I noticed because it's blocking fire lane, but I'm thinking that it may have been an accident. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't something that was being added.
Right now, there's no intent, where it's at right now is where it's gonna remain.
Okay, so the existing gate is to remain, there's no new gates. Perfect.
Okay. And then I assume that when they say that this will double as a storm shelter, there's other areas in the building that are also storm shelter, or is this the only?
I believe this is the only one. I think this is the first.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So whoever gets there first, I guess.
Could get crowded if they all have to get there.
And then what was the actual, I know you said that there's one other area that they could possibly expand. If you look on page 166, which I assume was the last approved site plan that came to council in 2014, 13, it said 850. Page 147, now it says 880 is the capacity. So did they give an indication of what they intend capacity to actually be?
No.
Would you like me to address it?
Yes.
Please, thank you.
Evening, council. Good to be back in front of you with a building on the plans instead of portable. So, I'm not sure. We did indicate that if we ever had to expand, it would be that one wing that's depressed right there in the front. Is the only other area we really could.
Which is next to it?
It's right next to
Right,
it, yes,
okay.
sir. Between the entrance and the new wing that we're proposing. The district is set in its philosophy at 850 schools, and 880 should not be the capacity. It's on there. 850 is the is the capacity of the building. We would never. I mean, the district has no plans because of the feeder pattern models that we've presented, especially in the recent bond election. We would never supersede that to go to a higher elementary count to over 850. I mean, that it just fits our model of 3 elementary schools to 1 middle school, 2 middle schools to 1 high school. So
Okay, and then just one last question. I think way back when we were talking about portables or something, you were going to put a security fence in the back. Are you still planning?
yeah, we are still planning to do
Okay,
that. Yeah.
okay.
That's just internal. We'll do that in-house.
Okay,
Not
good.
part of this project.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions, council? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of approving case SPAMD 1702, please show your hands. All opposed, same sign. It is unanimous. Thank you for coming, gentlemen and lady. Item number 11, receive a presentation from Fire Chief Wade Carroll regarding the fire department implementation of a program with Baylor Grapevine that allows fire personnel to activate a cardiac team at the hospital prior to the patient's arrival. Chief?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's my privilege to come to y'all tonight to brag on your fire department a little bit. Through a partnership with Baylor Grapevine, we were able to secure some increases in our technology, an application that allows us, just as the Mayor just said, to communicate more appropriately with the hospital and add to patient care. Pulsera is the name of our application that we've added to the patient care regimen. Pulsera is a HIPAA-compliant communication method. It's done through an application on a smartphone that allows us to speak directly from the application on scene in a patient's house to the cardiologist and the nurses, a part of the care team, that are a part of the care team. This is a great improvement, and it takes out quite a few steps. If you guys have ever been in the hospital by way of ambulance, Mr. Mayor, you'll understand that there are several steps and several times you communicate the same thing over and over and over again to several doctors, several nurses before the care regimen is actually decided upon. What this application does is actually allows the paramedics in the field to communicate directly to the doctor so that there's not a 3-step process before that doctor has the information he needs to start a diagnosis regimen. So how this thing works is very simple, actually. This is the Pulsera app that you see in front of you. When we go to a call, if we determine that the call is either a stroke or a cardiac call, then we'll use this application on the smartphone that is on the ambulance. We activate the application, and then we just simply pick the correct type of emergency for this specific call. Once the application opens up, we've selected that correct type of call, then we can begin putting in the patient information. This patient information is all done within the application, so there's no threat that it can be grabbed outside the phone and there'd be a HIPAA violation in losing that patient information. The patient information is sent directly through the application, as I spoke earlier, to the nursing staff at the hospital. One of the other great advantages of this application is if your treatment regimen requires you to receive an EKG or an ECG, we can take a picture through the app, again, not through the phone itself, so there's nothing stored on the phone's memory. We can take a picture of that EKG or the patient's driver's license as part of their information and send it directly to the hospital. The cardiologist receives the EKG almost real time, so it allows him to be able to read that EKG and decide whether or not the diagnosis in the field was accurate or that he wants to stand down his team. Once we get all that information in, we activate the team. Everyone on the team receives the information at the same time. Once we activate the application, the doctor receives the information that he needs. Everybody from the house super to the nursing staff, they all receive the appropriate level of information, all done through the application itself and the permissions within the application. So if you're the house super, you know that you have an event coming to your hospital that's going to require a surgery room, so that you'll be able to prepare that surgery room. But you won't know who the patient is or what type of surgery that might be. But the nursing staff that works with the cardiologist would know, hey, I've got a cardiac patient coming in, and I've got to get this equipment together in order to make this a quick and seamless process. And again, the cardiologist receives that information immediately. He can either communicate further with his staff, or he can actually communicate backwards to our paramedics in the field and ask for more information if he needed to. So one of the things that I really like about this as a fire chief, and the hospital staff really likes about this, is we get a continuous time clock through this event. And what a continuous time clock does for us, it allows us to start gathering analytics. So through the gathering of those analytics, we can compare ourselves and our performance and the hospital's performance against national standards, and we can look for those areas that we can find some tweaks to get some improvement. So this application allows for all of that information to be passed. The time clock starts immediately upon arrival and the opening of the application by the firefighters, and doesn't stop until the surgeon says, we finished the surgery and the definitive care was administered. So what does this mean to you? We're utilizing partnerships with Baylor Grapevine to get every penny that we can out of our partnerships and out of our own budgets. This application was actually no cost to our budget. No fiduciary money was spent from the fire department. It's going to increase the quality of our patient care, and it's also going to increase the efficiency that you're going to receive as a citizen in the town of Trophy Club, and the amount of care that you're going to get from the time you walk through the door until the time you're laying on a hospital bed if you need to be in surgery or anywhere else. That's going to shorten that amount of time and increase the efficiencies of that entire process. And we get to be a great way for us to be involved early in the stage of that process to actually affect patient care on the far end of the process by getting this information to those physicians as quickly as we can. So what's coming next for us? Technology is a thing that we're going to grasp here in the fire department, and with your permission as part of the budget process, we are looking to also improve our firehouse inspection modules and our firehouse staffing modules. Those two will also allow us to gather more analytics and allow us to look at our inspection process as a whole and kind of even that playing field and make sure that all those inspections are being done in the same way, even though there's several inspectors within the department. We're really trying to grasp that technology that's out there, that's cheap, that goes along with the programs that we already have in place and allows us to improve in our processes.
So we have this firehouse. Do we have the firehouse technology now?
Firehouse is a record management system. That's correct. So what this is just an added module as part of the firehouse program. So basically it's turning on a switch. We've already got the equipment. We've got everything that we need. We just need the permission to pay the money to turn the switch on. Allows us, again, allows the the inspectors to actually use an iPad when they go out in the field, and they'll have a list of all the things that they're supposed to be looking at. At the end of the inspection, the business owner would sign that inspection, and the inspection is emailed directly to them immediately upon the inspection itself. We get to time how long it takes us to get those things done. We can gauge workload. We can also have a list of what things we're having to continue to go back to again and again and again, and maybe help educate our citizenry or our business owners a little better and not have to go back as often. So that's the Pulsera application and kind of our plans for the future with technology in the fire department. I'll entertain any questions that you might have or go forward. Yes,
Eric?
How long have you been using the system, Pulsera, or the app?
Pulsera application went online last month, so we don't have any.
Yet?
We have used it twice, yes, sir. We've used it twice, yeah, and both times have been very successful.
I assume you're communicating via cell towers and not Wi-Fi.
That's correct.
We don't have the best reception in Trophy Club, so I wish you luck.
Any other questions?
So who else in the area has Pulsar with Baylor or one of the other hospitals?
So with Baylor Grapevine is the only facility that is using Pulsera at the time. So we have Grapevine, Southlake, ourselves, and some of the other area fire departments are kind of the guinea pigs for this initial release of Pulsera. The end application, they hope, is that every trauma patient, just about every kind of patient that you come across would be added to the Pulsera system as well. If you can imagine if we had a motorcycle wreck and you had a guy with a possible head injury, if I could take a picture of the helmet, take a picture of the scene, it might add to the doctor's ability to look at the mechanism of injury and better guide his decision-making in the operating room.
All right, great. Greg, did you have your hand up? Oh, you didn't have your hand up? Oh, okay.
I would have.
I've already paid my bill to Southlake.
Yes.
Without any further questions?
Thank you, Chief,
Okay,
for
thank you.
presenting that. Thanks for keeping us ahead of the game. All right, item number 12, consider and take appropriate action regarding the approval or rejection of the Trophy Club Crime Control and Prevention District CCPD budget for fiscal year 2018 submitted to the Town Council by the CCPD Board. I have a question with this before we vote. The question came from me asking the question of why not take one of the items of capital equipment that was in our budget on page 46 of your packet of the budget book, and let crime control pay for it as opposed to being part of our budget. So what came back to me was a little bit as well, CCPD wouldn't approve that budget, and I kind of decided I would argue the point and say, well, the deciding factor is council anyway, and does CCPD really approve a detailed budget? And what in our packet for the public hearing is not a detailed budget. So how would a citizen know whether or not you exchanged item A for item B if you're approving a budget of a dollar amount? So coming to you, David, about that, I think a couple of years ago, we actually did, as a council, say we rejected the CCPD proposed budget. They had to go back and deal with public hearing, and we had time to come back. So I don't know, Philip, was that right or
We
not?
did in 2014.
But they didn't have to have a public hearing.
Didn't have to have a
no,
public
you're
hearing.
right. Yeah, we had
They
a
had a joint meeting
yeah.
But I don't even see the need for a joint meeting if we're the deciding factor and you're not.
First question, everybody seems to be ahead of me on this, on the fact, I assume that it's an authorized use of CCPD funds? We're over that hurdle? Yeah.
It doesn't seem that it's not an
I haven't heard
authorized
anybody
use.
say anything else, but.
Yeah, it is a technology
question.
for police, is
It's
my
an authorized
assumption.
use of that fund. If you don't approve what they have, arguably the best way to do it was y'all approve what you have, then they go send it back to CCPD for approval or ratification, depending on how much different it is.
Okay.
With what you said, that it's just a number amount and it's not detailed,
The number amount is the same.
the number amount's the same?
It's a push item for item.
We could take an item from their budget, detailed, put it in our budget, and put this one there. Now, it comes back to council, this is a technology item, and it was placed in an IT budget item. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, if I do that. So it was placed there because it was an IT thing that was going to have either annual maintenance or maintenance at a period of time or be replaced at a period of time. And so my argument a little bit was, well, you do all sorts of equipment through CCPD that you're going to replace a vehicle that CCP bought. So you ought to be able to keep up with the maintenance and all that, no matter where it is, but it was just a way to look at it differently.
If council approves the total same number amount for the budget, I think the way to do it is have CCPD then ratify that later on. You're not changing really anything. It's just clarification, as you said. How's a citizen going to know if they're looking at this, what it is?
All right, so council might, I asked that question because I was headed down a path of potentially trying to reduce the tax rate. And so that was one area that was this page, and if I couldn't do that, then that dealt with a different subject. And so because the next agenda item is in fact a budget presentation and consideration of the tax rate, I'm going to make a motion that we table item 12 until after item 13. If I get a second, I'll speak to it further if I need to. All right, so Sanders moved to table, and Kurtz seconded. Any discussion about tabling? Hearing none, call for the vote. All those in favor of tabling, show your hands. All opposed, same sign. It is tabled till after we consider 13. Thank you for that consideration. I don't know that I would change anything. It's just I don't want to approve their budget and then come back and say I want to deal with something else, if you understand that. All right, item 13, receive a presentation from town staff regarding the fiscal year 2018 budget and provide appropriate direction. John, I believe you're going to talk to us.
Yes, sir. All right, Mayor and Council. This is the first time that we've ever presented a full proposed budget document with all its entirety, which includes goals, achievements, performance measures, this early and in this fashion. So what you're looking at is what will eventually be submitted to GFOA in October after we approve the budget. So this is really our first draft. This is just a little bit different than what we've done before. And because it is, I want to walk you through what this budget document is as a whole. This is really what the end goal of all budget document is. Usually your proposed budget is your Excel sheets and you just send people numbers with a little bit of description. This is actually the whole budget. And so I want to walk you through what the budget document is, why it's laid out the way it is, the importance of each section, just so that you're more familiar with it as council members and it can be more user-friendly to you. Because 200 or 164 pages is not the most friendly thing to pick up in the middle of the night and discern your way through. So,
Philip does.
Yeah, yeah. Councilman Schaffner is an anomaly. Yeah. So
Checked out.
yeah, I'd just like to walk you through some of these key sections, the importance of each of them, and why we include them in the budget document and why they're important. So the first page that we outline in the table of contents is page 5. This is the council record vote and the tax rates. And if we go to that page, this page is blank because you haven't taken a record vote on it. But a lot of this information on here is provided through Truth and Taxation. So we have to provide these numbers because the state of Texas requires us to be more transparent about what our rate is and what the information we are providing to you. So this page offers you how much your total tax rates increase, how much your property tax is increasing, where the property tax rate increase is coming from. It also compares your effective and rollback rates from last year to this year, so that citizens can see what the rate's doing and how it's changing over time. And so we also have some FY17 highlights that we include in there to give people perspective on why some of these things are happening, estimated population changes, decrease in property tax rates, overall rate, just highlighting some of these financial pieces of information. I promise I'll not stop on every single thing. Key officials page is you, our elected officials. Budget award is the award that we received last year for the proposed budget. Prepared by page is a listing of your finance professional page and how many years of experience we have, why we're preparing this little bits. Reader's guide. This is probably the simplest explanation of what a budget document is, why it's used, how we appropriate all of that. Sure. Sure. So your reader's guide is page 9. I'm going to flip to that real quick for you. So your reader's guide is about a 3-page guide. It goes through your chart of funds, your financial structure, your definition of accounting types. It explains why our method of counting is the way it is, how it's accounted for, whether we're cash basis versus modified accrual versus full accrual basis, the different fund structure that we have, so all the different operating funds that we have. It shows you and models you all the different fund structures that are within the town of Trophy Club. If you're ever just trying to start out and learn about municipal budgeting, this is a great place to go. It educates you on kind of the whole document, the process, and everything. All right, the budget calendar lays out our calendar for this fiscal year, when we're going to appropriate everything, when the public hearings are, and just kind of the schedule of how this budget came to be. Lastly is the manager's message. The manager's message includes a detailed listing of everything that's in the budget. He explains fund overviews, revenue overviews, all the important information that's in there. It's really Tom's letter to you, explaining to you how our budget came to be, why it is, major changes, anything that's made these funds change over time, fee structure changes, major occurrences. If someone was to go read the manager's message, they're supposed to get a very good idea of what the town of Trophy Club is, why they're functioning the way they are, why even we forecast some of the revenues the way we do. The strategy map is the strategy map adapted by you and council. That's part of our strategic planning. Everything is tied back to that. Our goals and even some of all of our performance measures are tied back to your strategic plan. I'll move this along, I promise. 5-year forecast is your 5-year outlook. That's how we predict capital expenditures over time. This is just making sure that your fund balance in the long term is protected. We're always looking at a 5-year glance and trying to project what personnel is going to be, what our service and supplies are going to be. We even roll out we plan capital 5 years out. That means equipment replacement, but also capital improvement projects and how that affects the general fund. Organization, I redid the organizational chart this year to explain our functional areas, to redo our whole structure of the organization. And so this really shows you the alignment of our organization, our functional areas under each of our directors. It also includes pictures of them this time, so it's a little bit more resident friendly. And so if they ever come up here, they know who they're going to talk to and kind of what they look like. All right, the budget in brief is a standalone document that is included in the budget. You're supposed to be able to take the budget in brief and summarize the whole document as a whole. And you can put this in publications. It's supposed to just be a pullout, and it's supposed to summarize your major activity, the biggest, broadest overview that you can have. Councilman Schopper.
Well, you skipped over that full-time equivalents. Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, sir.
That you put an asterisk on that 11.74, because it looks like we've added 11 employees this year. And I know you have it down in the notes, but maybe move that up right below it, that's accounting for 8.3 from the fire department.
Okay.
We take over from
All right, I'll highlight those changes.
Because when I first saw it, I thought, holy moly,
Yes.
we've added that many employees.
I read it as you've lost that many,
No,
from 73 to 11.
73 to
Oh,
85.
like you lost 62 people?
I thought slide came back.
Hey, man, when you talk about lowering the tax rate, well, that's one way to do it.
Yeah. We try to detail any changes that happen in there, and that summarizes most of those changes. It is a little confusing because we're shifting people between funds to maximize general fund revenue, also decrease tax rate, and keep people off of just that revenue source. So I'll take that into consideration, highlight the fire perspective of that so that the main changes can be shown. All right. All fund summary, fiscal year 2018, and the 3-year. Just one second, let me change the view on this. Okay. This is a really, really important piece of the budget document, and if you wanted a chart of accounts, but also showing you where money's allocated by department, by fund, this is the main place that you can actually go see it. So if you look, it's actually spread across 2 pages. It's very nice when you lay it out. As you can see, we have a number of funds. This highlights all funds, all expenditures, beginning fund balance. This is your fiscal year 2018 at a glance. And so this is broken down by revenue type, but also by departments. And so you can see how departments are spending across all funds. So police expenditures happen not just in general fund, but also CCPD, and this looks at that. All right. And if you go one page down, this is your 3-year outlook. And so this is a very good page to show what expenditure growth is looking like from your last year audited numbers to your estimates to your budget to the next year. If you want to see whether one department's growing or shrinking expenditures, this is the best place to look at it and see. Whenever people are asking broad overview questions about the town, such as how much is police costing the town, this is the page you'd want to go look at because it's going to show you across where the increases are coming from, and then you can go into the detail and ask more poignant questions.
So while you're on these pages,
Yes, sir.
I would make a suggestion on page 57.
Okay.
Under contingency expenses. Another asterisk.
Yes, sir.
Going from 25,000 to 137,000. There's an explanation elsewhere in the document. I can't remember what page it's on. It may be in Tom's letter. But there's a movement from kind of one area where it used to be accounted for to this area.
Yes.
And that biggest item was merit increases, I think, as I found it, all of a sudden ends up here.
Yes.
As opposed to by budget, by department.
Yes. So there's a reason why I did this. This is a good point. This is actually something I thought about whenever we were making the budget. Over the past couple of years, we've just assumed if we were forecasting, it would just show a 2% increase across all salaries. That's not how merits are truly allocated. And so by showing that, you create budget increases and shortfalls within departments to doing that. So once merit increases are divvied up and given out as they are, what you do is amendment to decrease this budget and to increase all of the corresponding budgets. Therefore, you're not over allocating or under allocating to any one department. And so I thought this was actually a good trade-off and a better place to put it. But you're right, I do need to notate that on the fund page.
And I think it was 120-something thousand.
125,000.
So if you look at the bottom figure of the total expenditures, this current year it's estimated to be 604. And then we're budgeting 630, but you added 125,000 to it.
Sir.
So anyway, so I just,
No,
it sticks out if you're trying to do what you said, kind of compare year after year.
Yes, sir.
And then you go, well, where is that explanation?
Yep.
And then I'm going in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
did he already answer this for me? Because I
No.
asked it once before.
No, you're right. This will be denoted on the front of the page and also below the chart. All right, I can actually make that change. That's a very good point. Right?
Yeah.
All right.
The one thing I would say is I agree with your intention on trying to account for it in a cleaner fashion, but in my opinion, it needs to roll up under personnel as opposed to services and supplies. I think occasionally that's one of the things that we do look at more of a top line.
Okay, how much it increased year
Yeah,
to year.
you
Okay,
know,
it
so
might skew that.
Yeah.
Put it under the subcategory of personnel under the manager's.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, every department's budget is broken up into personnel and everything else, and so since this is directly a personnel cost, it would make more sense to have it as a subheading under personnel, I think.
So we can move this from this to the main salary line of that line, and then we'll amend from there. That way it doesn't change the overall personnel cost, and you're right, it's broken out by the right category.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Okay. It goes quicker, I promise, once we get into the fun section.
Depends on the question.
Yes, sir. I just mean my presentation part. The questions may go very long. All right. So supplemental items, I re-geared and retooled the supplemental item pages this year for the budget and the merits. Question over those. 43. So what we did is we broke out supplemental items, how we presented them to you in council. So the one supplemental item that was above the effective tax rate was the ambulance. And so I put that as a separate supplemental item because that was presented to you in a separate manner. All of the rest of these supplemental items were included under the effective tax rate this year. And so I put that under the main heading subtitle and broke these out. And it is broken out by not just one-time expenditures, but multi-year expenditures too. So there is a distinction made to that. And so that you can see if you're changing multi-year changes, what's the 5-year outlook on that? It also highlights your capital equipment replacement. This is a great sheet that we started whenever I came here, and this highlights just how many vehicles and capital you're replacing during the year. All right, so The general fund is the next subsection, and then it goes through each department's page. Each department includes a breakdown of goals, accomplishments, and performance measures. And so if you go through every department usually has these. The only ones that don't are subcategory departments such as community events and facilities. Those two departments will not have some of those category breakdowns. They're kind of sub-departments. Their budgets are broken out based on more of a program basis. They don't house any personnel as well. So. Other major funds, your capital projects funds and your debt service fund are your two other major funds, and so that's where the main part of your accounting comes in. Those are presented separately. All of your other funds have a breakdown and chart showing visuals of how the fund balance is changing, and also revenues versus expenditures in some of your other funds. Next is your proprietary funds. These are business-like funds. We account for them differently. They are shown and presented in a modified accrual basis, even though they're accounted for on a full. So, for example, in those funds, you're going to show debt payments as an expenditure on that page, but if you go into actual accounting methods, those are shown as a reduction in a liability. And so they're just shown there to show changes in a modified accrual basis. Your capital improvement program, so every budget, some budgets are broken out by a CIP versus regular M&O and IS budget. Your capital improvement program breaks down projects over the next 5 years, your major capital projects that we're planning for. And the vast majority of those are funded through the current debt issuance. The last 2 years of that 5-year plan, there will be a new debt issuance that needs to be issued. And so each of those projects has a breakdown of cost. I'm going to go show you one of those because I think it's something that we included last year, and it's a major change that's really important. Not only helps us in finance, but it helps you guys make decisions. So Indian Creek here is actually broken up by the two. It shows total expenditures. It also shows the funding sources for that project. So it shows that we're funding it through 2 separate debt issuances. And it shows you whether it has any annual maintenance associated with it. Very few of these projects will, but if you do something like a park or a trail improvement, they'll have annual maintenance costs associated with it. So that's a requirement that we're supposed to show. So if we purchase some large item or do some major improvement, that there is an impact to operating funds that it has been accounted for. All right. So the last one is the supplemental information. This section actually changed most out of any of ours. We used to keep all of our financial information in the back of it, meaning all of our policies were in the back of it. This last year, we included an excerpt from our purchasing policy. What I've done now is simplify that and made that a 1-page with links to all of our financial policies, with summaries of what our financial policies are. I'm going to go and show you that right now. This is a major change. I'm not seeing a lot of cities go to this yet, but I saw one city and I thought I'm going to mimic it because I think this is a great idea. We should, if we included all of those financial policies in here, you're talking about 200 extra pages of printing. It's going to be more intimidating than it will be useful. It also highlights any major changes that we had to those documents and any changes we anticipate over the next year. Lastly is the glossary and appendix. These are just supposed to make it more friendly for people who are not used to the terms that we use. All right. I know that you guys have a lot of questions, and I am ready to answer that with many of the directors.
Anybody have a question? Craig?
Just a suggestion.
Yes, sir.
On page 5, you've got 8.86% increase, but you show its property value is 10.7 and just a decrease of 1.5. Maybe you should flip that because the tax rate really doesn't relate to the property values. You could have values that freeze and what have you. And the 8.86 is just a suggestion.
Yes, that's a total change in property revenue. That has to why that changes.
What is that?
Yes, that by state law we are. That has to be the first thing that you put in your budget, and it is a requirement due to truth and taxation. So we cannot change that.
So is this book that we received? This is a placeholder, or this is the finished product?
This is the finished product. So as we go through this process, the changes that you make, I will make to this document and will constantly update until the day that you adopt it.
Okay.
And so that means that this is the one that we're going to submit to GFOA for awards, but it's also the one that goes directly onto our website with all of our information on there.
Okay, so go to page 62.
Yes, sir.
So is the performance matrix matrix, that's the look back? Or, because when you say it is the town's goal, the third paragraph down at the bottom, it is the town's goal to utilize the citizen volunteers for at least 3,700 hours in FY17. Why would we look back? Why wouldn't we say what our goal is for FY18?
So number of volunteer hours, sorry, no, that number needed to be amended to reflect the 2,000 goal. Oh, that is a
Okay.
change. So the FY18 goal, it should have been, instead of 3,700 hours, it should have been 2,000 hours.
Okay.
And say fiscal year 18.
Yes, and say fiscal year 18, my apologies.
FY18, and then instead of 37, it's 2,000 hours?
Yes, because the FY18 goal is 2,000 hours.
And at the top line you have, I guess last year 2114, and now it dropped down to 806.
Yes, sir.
Was our goal 3,700 last year, and we went 806?
Yes. Again, the year hasn't finished. We're constantly updating these, and we'll change those projections as it goes forward.
And then next year you got back up to 2,000.
Mhm.
Question.
Yes,
Sir.
So on the police budget, currently you have building maintenance, electricity, water.
Yes, sir.
That are going away in
Yes, sir.
18. I assume you're now putting all those costs to, so even though it's, the police side is gonna have their own maintenance just for the police, so why isn't there any money budgeted for them? Where's it at?
That will all be budgeted out of the facilities budget. So we'll pay for that in one place. They won't have to pay for their own, just police versus the rest of the town. So it's all budgeted out of the facilities department. That's why we zeroed it out going forward.
Because you're probably going to have a contract with somebody to maintain the building,
Yes, and all of that
not
will.
just a side of it. So I had a question. Somebody else have a question? I'm still looking for the page. I lost my tab. And
I do have a question.
Thanks, Eric.
I have a question about medical insurance. Is it appropriate to discuss right now? Yes. So I'd gotten information from Jonathan about the new insurance rates, and I should have had you give that to everybody. Perhaps it's not appropriate to talk about for this budget, but I think it would be appropriate to talk about for a year, 10 months from now, whatever. Just looking at how the town pays for 100% of an employee, and let's say that's $500. If they have a spouse, they'll pay we're paying, let's say, $700 per month. If they have a family, we're paying $900, right? And so to me, the way it's done right now, honestly, doesn't make very much sense. I would be more in favor of going with a flat rate. So just, doing the math right now, roughly we're spending, say, $8,000 to $8,500 per employee on average. So that's what's budgeted for 63 employees. I would much rather say per employee, that's your budget. You're allowed to spend whatever that number is that we come up with per employee. That way it's fair for the single person, it's fair for the married, and they're all treated the same. And then if they want to get the highest medical insurance plan, they can. If they want to get the lowest and then use some of it for supplemental insurances, accidental, life insurance, additional life insurance, whatever they want to use it for, fully fund their HSA each year if they do the HSA plan. That's just something I would like to have the discussion for. And like I said, it's probably too late for now, but for the next fiscal year, 18-19.
So what you have, is that what was in our consent agenda? Is it the same?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. Actually, when you requested that document, I emailed it to the entire council, and then it was added to the agenda, and it is in your packet.
In this packet?
Not in the budget book, but in the actual
Consent.
agenda packet.
Yeah, it was,
Item 7.
Do you know what page it's
yeah.
on?
Yeah. Which,
I can't get on.
yeah. 135 has the breakdown, or actually 134 has the medical contributions.
So you see where I'm talking about, how
Yeah.
there's no rhyme or reason for what the percentages are or what the amount is.
Is there an opt-out where they can take the cash and buy their own?
We currently don't offer that option, no. But these are all trends that, what you're speaking of are all trends that are happening right now as the Affordable Care Act continues to change and employers are seeing additional costs added to their payroll and their benefits package. So, because of where we are throughout the year, this was the proposed plan mix for this fiscal year coming up. We do have the opportunity to make those adjustments for next year, or if you council wishes, of course, we can go back to the drawing board and work something else out. But we were following a similar plan mix when we were compared against other communities and other benefits packages. We're offering a 77% currently, and most communities are offering about 80-20 split. So we're really close to the average as far as that goes.
When is the open enrollment date?
Open enrollment.
When is your renewal?
Well, we're on a 10-1 date,
10-1.
and so we have open enrollment next week.
Mm-hmm. So I would just make a comment for next year, and I don't know that you can do this, but had a significant savings in my business when I implemented this. So the first question is, what, in the plans that you pick, what is the deductible that people pay?
We actually made some significant changes to the plans this year, and I can actually provide you with that breakdown if you'd like. With our recommendation, which was on the consent agenda, moving to United Healthcare, what we did was several things. Is we narrowed the network, so now employees can no longer go outside of the network.
Right,
they have to pick a doctor that's in the United Healthcare network, so that actually saved the town considerable amount of money. The other thing we did was we actually, because United Healthcare didn't match up perfectly with Blue Cross Blue Shield and what was offered through their plans, we got the next closest thing, and so in some cases the out-of-pocket maximums went up. In some cases the deductibles went up. And some, for example, one that I can think of off the top of my head is the emergency room visits. That cost went up as well. So the employees are putting more skin into the game this year than they have before, and we did that through the change in plan, the narrowing of the network, and adjusting the actual plan design itself. I can pull that up real quick.
I don't want to. No, that's okay. You don't have to get to the detail because it's too late to change.
To answer the deductible question, it went from 0 to 20%.
Okay, so just for next year, consider this idea. It's a little bit like you're self-insuring a higher deductible. If you took your 77 employees, not all 77 of them are going to hit a high deductible. So if you raised your deductible to be $5,000, but you told your employees, we'll reimburse you everything over $1,000 if that's your deductible figure, I think you'll find, at least I have for the last 5 years, a huge savings because your rate goes down significantly with the insurance company, and not everybody needs the difference between $1,000 and $5,000 deductible. Now, a couple of years ago, because we have United kept up with that for us. And so they would actually draft from our account the amount needed, draft from our checking account the amount needed to reimburse the employee and send a check immediately because they've already had the expense at the doctor's office or whatever. Sure. They don't do that, haven't done that the last few years. Now maybe you can get some leverage with your size, but it is something you have to keep up with. But here's an example of, at that time I only had 18 employees, and I saved $37,000 the first year, even though I reimbursed anybody that had more than $1,000 out of pocket.
Sure. 1,000 to 5,000.
Actually, it went from 1,000 to 3,000 at that time. So that $2,000, I had really very few people that needed the $2,000, and so every month I was saving money when I was writing the check to the insurance company. Don't know if municipality can do that. It's kind of like a self-insurance issue. You surely have the cash to do it. It's the administration of it, and will United keep up with that for you, or do you have to keep up with that? The disadvantage for the employee is one physician or clinic may say, I want you to pay that deductible before you leave the office. But typically, if they know about the plan, they won't force that issue because they know you're going to get the check. And you're liable for it. You're liable for it anyway. So it's huge savings, I think. And I think that's why companies around the United States are raising their deductibles, is because they can get lower rates, and then they can deal with it internally to help their employees.
Sure, and we've actually had those discussions. Again, because of the timing this year, we weren't able to go down this path. Next year, we're going to put pretty much every option on the table, and we're going to begin this process in the spring. And so, but real quickly, as you can, I did have this available on but for example, so you have your fiscal year 2016, fiscal year 2017 changes here. And if someone were to choose the high plan, their out-of-pocket maximums are going from $1,500 to $4,000 for an individual.
Right.
So we've made significant changes to these plans to get this number down to where it is now. Now, again, next year we may be looking, as I mentioned when we talked about this the last council meeting, we may be looking at, potentially moving from 3 plans to 2 plans. And eventually, as the mayor mentioned, we do have some options with the HSA program that the town may, end up completely on an HSA program and not have a PPO as an option. So we have, everything's on the table. We're going to be looking at that with our consultants. That's what we pay them for. And again, I apologize. We will start this process a lot earlier next year.
All right, thank you.
Sure, and again, if you have any further questions or you'd like this matrix, I can provide you with this and email it out.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, so the budget is before us, and did anybody else have any questions, or I do have an item? Eric?
Do we have a budget subcommittee?
We do.
Apparently
Who
do.
is it?
It is myself and, was it? Schaffner and Lamont, yeah.
So does the committee not have anything to present?
We gave recommendations, and that's what's come before you already.
That's right.
So we had our meeting, and we did that.
We just got this book,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is
Y'all-
kind of,
So.
Or go
in
ahead,
my-
Eric.
I think the committee needs to be working with the town staff a whole lot earlier than to,
We agreed with that and said that also. Unfortunately, this year, because of changeover, that just was impossible to accomplish.
I actually have a fundamental disagreement. We have a budget subcommittee because of a niche charter amendment. Like many of our other niche charter amendments, you can guess where it came from. In my opinion, the budget committee is the 7 people that run for office and get elected. I want as much conversation as possible to happen here in this group. Now, what you guys did this year is fine. I don't have any. It doesn't seem to be that it's inhibiting the discussion at all. But I don't want the train too far down the tracks before I get an earnest look at it. So that's maybe next year it would be appropriate to have a discussion about what we would like to task that subcommittee with.
All right. So I do have a proposal and a motion that I want to make, but I want to get some data and have some discussion first. Council, it's my objective to lower the tax rate another ½ cent. So that's my objective. Now, I didn't do the calculation before I came in here. Maybe you have that off the top of your head.
$85,000.
Okay. I was pretty close when I was guessing at what it was. So, and then my easiest way to accomplish that is dealing with the ambulance. And that's the reason I had the questions that I had sent earlier.
Yes, sir.
Right now, the tax rate includes paying the $260,000 cash for the ambulance.
Yes, sir.
And so if we were to finance that over X years, we immediately have a savings that we can apply to the tax rate, because you're not going to use $260,000 in your calculation.
No, we would use a third of the value of $260,000.
If you did 3 years.
Yes.
Okay. So, and for council that maybe didn't get in on this, the interest on a 3-year note for that was roughly
$15,600 at 3%.
Okay. So you could take this figure, add $15,000 to it, divide it by 3, and say, okay, I've got greater than the $85,000 that I needed, right?
Yes, sir.
So I could get a half cent by merely financing the vehicle over 3 years. It's surely greater than a 5-year life vehicle, in my opinion. Chief, I don't know. And so it wouldn't necessarily hurt me in my financial world to say finance it 5 years. Now, I realize the total interest is greater, but that also gives us a little more flexibility. Now, if we make that decision tonight to lower our tax rate by financing the vehicle, it does say for the next 2 years, or whatever years you say you finance it, that you're going to have to make sure you put that in the budget. So as opposed to, in this case, it's pay it all 1 year, next year you deal with something else. As opposed to having, how much if we divided it by 330,000?
It's 260,000. If you divide it by 3, it'd be 87,000.
Plus the interest.
Yes.
Plus debt service would be like almost 92,000.
You said it's 3%?
Yes, sir.
Is that normal rate because it costs so much? Because a regular car loan is below 3%. So
Yes, sir.
Municipal-
Even
municipality.
with municipal, because they're short-term loans, unless we rolled in a lot of other capital things into it, we couldn't get that rate down.
Can't just go to a bank and borrow the money?
We can go to a bank and do a short-term note. That was what the financing agency through the that we were going to purchase the ambulance from gave us as a rate.
I just think it's high. personally.
I think it's high too, but whatever it is, at least for me at this point. So, if I was to take this approach, I could get more than a half a penny if I wanted to, or there could be money left over from the payment of the ambulance. So that's where I would like to head. So let's get some discussion from council. What's your preference? What are you thinking? If y'all don't want to head that direction, then we don't need to do calculations. If you do want to head that direction, then we need to get a little closer so that we understand where we're headed. And are we giving instructions to the staff to say, you know, whatever the calculation comes up to be a third of the ambulance, make the rate equal what you need to pay that for, as opposed to just a half cent
Yes, sir.
savings, okay? So council comments. Greg?
I would prefer to pay for the ambulance cold cash. I think if we want to reduce it another half cent, we task the finance department saying, you find the 85,000. You cut and slash.
I agree with Greg.
Yes. Ryland?
I actually would prefer to finance it. I think 3 years is appropriate. And the reason that I would prefer to finance it is not only because of the impact to the tax rate, but because any impact to the tax rate that we are able to put into place this year has an impact in future years, because every year when we're sitting down to figure out what our effective rate is and everything else, those are baselined on what we spent the previous year. And for me, it's very valuable to be able to keep that number low. It's unnatural for us in the way we handle capital equipment generally as a policy to make a purchase this large all at once. And when you consider that it is unnatural, and in the future, I assume it'll be, the next ambulance will be under capital replacement, I take it.
Yes.
So if that's our policy for capital replacement for purchases this large, we're gonna do that for every ambulance moving forward, and borrowing costs are as low as they are, and we know we're gonna be able to impact future tax rates, and that baseline in a positive fashion if you're the one paying for it, negative fashion if you think about the fact that it's going down. To me, those are all good enough reasons to me to finance it over 3 years, and I would recommend that we take the entire savings off the tax rate and then move forward through the budget process if there's anything that we can then, someone wants to try to do that we're not able to do at this point, and, you know, still be at a acceptably low rate for what folks want to try to do.
Council, any other comments? Alicia? Tim?
I agree with Ryland. I think, I always want to bring the tax rate down. I will say, I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but I think 3% is high, so I would be going for the lowest rate possible.
Yes, sir. We will.
When you're down at 1.5%, 2%, I think it's definitely worth financing and cutting the rate down.
Philip, Alicia? Let everybody else speak, and then I'll come back to you.
Yeah, I could go either way. I think that if we do, I'm disappointed in myself, disappointed in staff for not having a replacement program. I mean, we've kicked this can continuously, for 3 years, and I can't believe we don't have a replacement program. If we finance it, I think that we should really look hard in our budget to find cuts for that 15,000.
Oh, yeah.
So in other words, if we're going to finance it, let's find, because I know several places, and I think that I didn't really have a lot of time with this budget because we just got it Tuesday. When did we get it? We got it when we were walking around, I think.
Thursday.
Thursday.
last
Yeah, so I haven't really dove into it. So that I'm going to find some things. I've already found different things that I think is a little inflated, like the town hall opening and things like that. So I just would challenge us to dig deep, and if we're going to finance it, let's cut that same amount that the financing charge, the interest would be.
I agree.
So.
All right, Alicia.
I like that idea, Philip's idea.
All right, Eric, you had your hand up.
What's the average household value in Trophy Club?
Are you asking for appraised value
Yeah.
or market value?
Appraised value.
Appraised value is around 400,000.
400,000. So, do y'all know, you're talking a half cent per 100, so you know what we're talking about here? $20. $20 a year per family. Big deal.
Every little bit counts.
No, it doesn't. $20. Come on, guys.
Well, let's all.
We've got. If
Okay.
we got
Let's all
Eric
spin
needs
it.
to be financing this.
I do have one more thing I want to add. To what Philip said,
Rylan?
to me, I agree with this because of what I said about the future impact of the tax rate. By no means do I view this as make this decision and then don't touch the budget. I mean, to me, 15,000 is just a starting point. And, every little bit matters, because if you don't lower it, it grows. And if it grows, it never stops growing.
So I'll make one other comment as soon as I started it out. I'm okay with a 3-year figure. I was okay with a 5 if you decided to do that. I'm okay with the idea of trying to find $15,800 somewhere else in the budget. I identified several other areas I might debate the value of spending that money, ranging from inventory system to some other things.
Yes, sir.
Even questions of how fast do you do the point-to-point. And I would prefer not to have to get there personally. And so I realize that's upon me for not spending more time trying to get there another way. And I had those items, and I asked some questions about some of those to see whether or not I wanted to do that or not. And when one of those items which dealt with inventory system came up, well, part of what it includes is a barcode system to be able to have a barcode label on an item, and when you take it out of inventory, it reads it, and then that flows into the inventory system. Well, I like the use of that technology. So to me, that said, well, maybe I'm not willing to cut that because of the explanation that I got about it. Explanation that I got about the point-to-point aspect was, yeah, we could spread it out. We don't get quite all the benefit from it as fast. And so to me, it was like, well, do I somewhat try to find enough small items to get me $85,000, or take this one step that I think is an easy way to get me greater than half a cent? And if I understood kind of your direction, was come up with what you think the cost of the financing is, if that's a 3% interest over 3 years. See if there's other places to save the 15.8, and come back to as much tax saving as you can give us.
Yes, sir.
Does that make sense? Now, that's what I understand what you were saying,
Yes,
Ryan.
sir. Yeah.
And so, why don't you make that as a motion? We'll get that on the floor, have a second, and then we can debate that.
Sure.
Mayor, we'll say this about tax rate decreases. in 3 years, well, in 2 years, you're going to be at substantial build out. And in 3 years, you're going to have to do another debt issuance for your capital projects. At that time, most likely who's our staff or me will still be recommending we increase INS rates. Because we're not going to have new growth at that time, that's either going to have to come out of operating or a tax rate increase. And so why I caution anyone on tax rate decreases over the long term is because at some point in time when new growth stops and new revenue stops turning in from development and we're not opening new restaurants, we're not having these new growth in property tax bases, we will have to pay for those capital expenditures. We have been very fortunate to be able to decrease our tax rate and pay for those new capital improvements every year by stair stacking our debt. We have still done that going forward, and we're giving you the best possible option by front loading this 2017 issuance. And so in 3 years, I see us having to increase our INS by at least half a penny. And so when I say a tax rate decrease now does affect, as Ryland says, that effective rate is calculated based off spending off of the previous year. And so those will be tax rates that if state law keeps changing in the next biennium, I'm guessing it will change again, and they will cut our rollback rate from 8% to 4%. It will be hard to increase half a penny then. It will actually almost be impossible without a referendum. And so that's the only thing I caution you on. We will do whatever directed.
You know, every year I say this, we have to budget with the laws that we have in place. We cannot go get our magic 8 ball and say in 2 years it's going to be 4%. You can't operate that way. So.
Yeah, and I just want to add one thing to that is because of what you just said, we have to be as fiscally conservative and responsible as possible. So we want to be trying to, which Tom's done a great job so far, but we have to continue to do that for the exact reason you've said it, right?
Yes, sir.
So we want to make sure that there's no fluff in our budgets at all. We want to be as tight as possible.
All right, I'm going to recognize Mayor Pro Tem Rowe for a motion.
Yeah, I would make a motion. We direct the town manager to prepare the budget reflecting a financing-based plan for funding a new ambulance based on a 3-year financing term, and to have the entirety of the savings from that reflected in the tax rate.
Second.
And what about that interest issue? Do you want to include that?
Well, that would be included.
Well, I'm saying where they try to find savings elsewhere. For
Oh, to actually attach. Oh, sure. Yeah, I will continue the motion and to task staff with finding offsetting savings for the interest costs year over year.
Second again.
Okay. So we have a motion by Rowe, a second by Schaffner, to direct the town manager to bring us a budget reflecting a 3-year financing of the ambulance, and that we take the full savings of that change and reduce our tax rate.
Yes, sir.
And that we try to task the town manager to find an offset for the interest expense in the current budget proposal.
Yes, sir.
All right? And so we have a motion and a second. So that's the point on the floor. Any discussion?
Yeah, and I'll add to that, you're more than welcome to look in our budget first, which we've always said from the time that we've gotten on council, look at ours first. You know, if you want to start cutting in ours, cut in ours.
So, yeah, I could have found, and it's difficult when you start nickel and diming the things, and then I have to spend a lot of time trying to find $85,000. But I also have this feeling, this is just my philosophy as a citizen, is I don't want you to hold my dollars.
Yes, sir.
In your general fund. Now, I recognize I'd like to have a certain level in the general fund, and it's nice to have $260,000 cash that I can pay cash for an item. That's great. But the reality is, part of that's my money.
Yes, sir.
That I loaned you, and I got no interest. You paid on that. Of course, I got no interest from anything I have in the bank either. But that's kind of my tax philosophy. is, I don't want you to keep all that money necessarily, but it's surely good to have a certain amount of it. I surely recognize the build-out problem that we face, and that we still have streets that need improvements. We still have debt to issue. And we made a decision with the citizens to build a town hall that affected our debt structure for a long time. And so we're going to be living with that for the next 20 years or 19 years, whatever's left in that. And then we're going to have to deal with how we do streets. But the last couple of years, we used a little cash reserve to do streets, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes, we have.
Yeah,
to do
so
small
I'm
street
going,
projects.
okay, I think we've got some cash reserves. Part of our budget is that we're taking, correct me if I'm wrong, CCPD has a debt, EDC has a debt. They didn't have the cash to do what we needed them to do. And so basically, they borrowed money from the town to pay their debt, and in their budget, they're paying back the town, which is going to the general fund.
Yes.
And so the odds of them not paying us are rare. And so I'm going, I've got a certain percentage of that income to the general fund coming from inter-company transfers or entity transfers that's going to happen
Yes.
for the next 10 years or so. So I actually feel pretty comfortable with going to a 0.6, a 0.7, whatever is additional, which I think will bring us in somewhere around a 1.2 or 1.3 cent decrease. So I appreciate your cautious
Yes, sir.
attitude toward us. And of course, by the time you get there, I will have termed out, and it will not be my problem.
Yes, sir.
Oh, the truth came out. No.
But truth in taxation, yeah. You know, I do have a motive, but the motive is I want to save the taxpayers' money, and all of us ended up with quite an increase in our appraised value.
Yes, sir.
And so I look around and I look at what municipalities are doing, and are they being sensitive to the needs of their citizens? And I think sensitive to the needs of Trophy Club citizens is, let's take what we can now. If 3 years from now, 5 years from now, we have to increase to do that, then that's what we'll have to do.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because this has been a big topic and we've all followed it. And, you know, to hear TML talk, y'all would think that a rollback election is blood in the streets and horses driving vehicles and crazy stuff. And I am infinitely more concerned with not doing everything we can to lower the rate when our residents' appraisals are going up 10% every single year than I am about coming in down the road and needing some very obvious capital improvement projects and saying, okay, guys, we got to be able to go borrow more money than we currently can.
Yes, sir.
And I'm infinitely more comfortable in doing that. And that may just be me, but that's the way I'm going to approach the next several years as we continue to do this.
All right, any other comments before we vote? Yes,
I
Eric?
have a comment. I think it's funny that y'all are trying to pat yourself on the back for this. This is nothing. Y'all want to cut the budget? Let's cut the budget. This isn't doing a darn thing to the budget. So stop patting yourself on the back for it.
Well, let's go. You know, I'm not. This
This ain't doing nothing.
I agree.
It's
I would
half
love.
a cent
Let's
per
do
hundred.
more.
It's
Okay,
nothing.
let's do 4 cents. Let's do it. You know, I
All
would
right,
do
so-
4 cents. So,
so,
why you're throwing stones at me?
We have a motion and a second on the floor. So I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of the motion, show your hands. All opposed, same sign. All voted yes, except for Jensen, who voted against.
Lamont.
Oh, I didn't see that.
You never see me, it's like I'm Claude Rains.
He wants to
I've-
move back to his old chair.
I've called on you twice when I thought your hand was up and you
Yeah,
didn't
well, I
say
had
anything.
a bang, I'm banging.
Okay, so let me correct that. Lamont and Jensen voted no, the rest of the council voted yes. So motion does carry, and what I would ask, Tom, is that you try to get that calculation back to us so that as soon as possible, before you produce a new book necessarily, just what does that really calculate out to?
Yes, sir.
As you roll those few little figures into it, what would be the tax rate that we are maybe facing with?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go back to item 12. Thank you very much, John. And Amber, for all the work that you did. You just weren't presenting at this point. And any other staff that worked on it, so, okay. Consider and take appropriate action regarding the approval or rejection of the Trophy Club Crime Patrol Prevention District budget for fiscal year 2018, submitted by Town Council by CCPD board staff. So that is their 2017-2018 budget is before us. Do I have a motion, or does somebody want to do anything with that?
So we're sure that that's okay, everything's
The
kosher?
number's the same, the base number, total budget's the same.
Because it's, I mean, we can reject it and have them come back to us, it's not a big problem, we've done it
But
before.
you're still, but even if you reject, correct me if I'm wrong here.
It's 18 and 18.
If you pass the budget with the total budget they recommended, total amount they recommended, it's just a line item or something inside there.
So it's
The total number's the same, and you said you didn't have a detailed recommendation that came to you.
No.
So they're asking for a budget of a certain number of dollars, and you're approving that amount.
total expenditures of $209,431.
And that's what you're approving, with one switch of an item.
Right.
I would make it clear in the motion that you're approving the 209,000 with this switch, and then they can ratify it on the way down. And really, the ratifying step is just really informational.
So the item, Philip, that you're exchanging,
Is for the 18,000 for a part-time custodial, evidence custodian. And what's the item that you are wanting to put in there? IT, something with IT?
Information Services CJIS device. I think it's called compliant device.
So for
Wireless.
118,000 is coming out and one is going in.
Right.
Yep.
Clarify which way.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to approve the 17-18 CCPD budget with the caveat that the line item for 18,000 for an evidence custodial comes out of the budget, and then a line item for 18,000 for CJIS goes into the budget.
All right, so I'm going to correct our parliamentary procedure.
Second.
And that is, we tabled the item, we never removed it from the table.
Okay.
So I'm going to make a motion to remove item 12 from the table. Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
We do have a second from Rowe. Sanders moved. All in favor of removing item 12 from the table, show your hands. All opposed, same sign. It is removed from the table. Chair will now recognize Councilmember Schaffner for a motion.
So I will make a motion to approve the 17-18 CCPD budget with the caveat that we remove the item for 18,000 that is evidence custodian, and we put in an line item for 18,000 for the CJIS device. Is it a device or?
It's a wireless,
Wireless
piece of
device.
hardware.
Wireless device.
All right, so we have a motion by Schaffner, seconded by Jensen. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll
Wait,
call
I
for
do
the
have,
vote.
sorry, I just have one comment, just because this is our only opportunity to talk about the numbers here with it in front of us. I notice our fund balance as a percentage of expenditures in out years continues to kind of go up. I would like us to, as we get into out years, kind of keep that in that 35 to 40 range like we do on the town side, and I'm sure you guys will. But that's not really pertinent to the motion, but it's my only opportunity to mention it.
So now I could call you out of order.
You're welcome. Welcome to. Wouldn't be the first time.
Okay. All right. Did we vote?
Not yet.
I don't think so. Okay. All in favor of the motion, show your hands. All opposed, same sign. The CCPD budget is approved with the caveat of the detail line item. All right, and so now we are down to item 14. Town Council future agenda, item number 4, consider and take appropriate action regarding ordinance amending Division 2, Meetings and Rules of Procedures of Article 103, Town Council of Chapter 1, General Provisions of the Town of Trophy Club Code of Ordinances, and providing an effective date. And that's, would be ordinance 2017-19. And so, Councilmember Schaffner had some suggested changes. I have a copy with me. Was there something at the dais about that? I can't remember.
No, sir, it was included with the packet.
It was in the packet, wasn't
Page
it? Yeah, it was in the packet. Okay.
355.
All right, so, Philip, you want to take us to the various
Page 8, if you're looking at your ordinance.
8 of 4?
8 of 15.
I mean,
Page,
8 of
page 355 if you're looking at the packet.
Well, let me go to that, because I have it. So 355 in the packet?
355 is the first, these are basically just cleanup items. So the first item is we have an item about written communication, but it was only for specific agenda items. This just adds if a person wants to send a letter for citizens presentation, they can do so as long as it's received 4 hours ahead of time. We're provided that. It's put back on the table for anybody in the audience to see, and then we will put that they sent a letter and the topic of their letter, but the letter will not be included in the minutes.
So that's H2?
Correct.
That is, at least in the packet, is blue lined.
Correct. Yep.
All right.
And then
Next item.
The next item is page 357, and this is just to clean up kind of a rule that's not used very often, but was used several council meetings ago. And this basically allows somebody to object to an agenda item. It requires a 2/3 vote. But this kind of lays out that the item is not on the floor until it's actually completed being read by the mayor. And if you want to object, you object during the reading of that before it's put on the floor. And again, it requires a 2/3 and doesn't require a second, requires a 2/3 vote to have that agenda item not hit the floor. So it's just a cleanup.
So when I first, Philip and I had some dialogue back and forth, email dialogue about this back and forth, and it was like, so we're asking someone to interrupt the reading of the item in order to get it on the floor. And so I first kind of said, well, that seems kind of rude. In the middle of reading the sentence, you're going to say, Mayor, I object to consideration. Well, I got to thinking about that in the sense that if I was going to call a point of order,
Right.
I would interrupt also.
Yeah.
So point of order interrupts what's going on, whether it's the speaker or it's the presider. And so that probably is appropriate. The only thing that I think was missing, and I think there was some confusion a few weeks ago as Eric made that objection, is I'd like to add to it that the person, when they object, they include a statement as to why he or she objects. Now, it says, based on the item, is not a proper topic for council. But why isn't it a proper topic for council? So I went back and tried to do a little more research about this particular parliamentary procedure. And it actually instructs exactly how it's supposed to happen. In fact, you do get the attention of the chair, and you address the chair and say, I object to consideration. And then everything stops at that point. But there's a part that if you go back and look at Robert's rules, and we're under Robert's rules with our own exceptions to that or guidelines to that. One of the things that is there is that they're concerned about protecting the rights of the body. And so the fact that you don't need a second, that you immediately vote, and I think we had some confusion as to exactly what was the objection, what was the issue. It seemed to me that we conform to trying to protect the rights of the body, and the body includes more than council, it includes the citizens, that we address the issue of statement of why. Then the other thing that was there was that, which was a little unique, is that we had 3 residents come and sign up. Now, you didn't know that necessarily, other than maybe you saw them in the audience and maybe you saw them turn in a slip. I knew that they had signed up. But one of the things that Robert's Rules talks about is the fact that you're protecting the rights of people that want to speak. And so you don't know who those people are necessarily. If in fact your procedures were that you take a speaking cue and you had actually begun debate, you can object to consideration at the point of a motion. So you can object to consideration just like you can the main topic item when a motion is made. So a motion could be made, you can immediately seek the floor and say, I object to consideration of this item. Well, if there were people that wanted to speak, have you protected their rights to deal with that? So I don't have the proposal of how do we solve this in the future, but it seems like that if in fact there had been people signed up, you ought to be aware of that before you voted. That was just me.
Isn't the whole
Greg.
purpose of this to not have discussion? And therefore, that would be
Yeah.
council and citizens?
It is, but are you protecting the rights of the body with a published agenda to deal with that? Yes.
Okay, I think, okay, I'll disagree with you that the body is not protected because it requires a 2/3 vote. That's the protection of the body. If it was just a simple majority, I probably would agree with you, but it's a high hurdle that you have to cross. So I think the body is protected. I think that, and we can have a debate on citizens signing up. Our rules don't specify that citizens sign up. And so our rules specify that when an agenda is open, that the presiding officer will ask if anybody wants to speak. So the intention here is by not opening up the agenda, by specifying that the agenda is not open until you actually read it, complete reading it, then there's no opportunity for council, like Greg's saying, or citizens to speak because it is as if the agenda was never there. It's never been open.
David?
Mayor, as far as the citizens, you could reopen citizens' appearance.
Citizen presentation?
Yeah, because it's like an agenda item that's not agended. Under open meetings, you would still be able to respond, but I think I would take the position that if it's been objected to and you're not going to consider it as a council 2/3 vote, you're saying y'all can speak, but we can't respond. I don't know if that needs to be written in the proceedings.
I don't think
it's
it
more of
does
a
necessarily,
procedural
but
thing, but
that's a good point.
that's the way I would handle it if it came up. I'd suggest you have the opportunity to reopen citizens' appearance or citizens' presentation.
Knowing that they did sign up.
Once it's
Yeah.
been objected to and no longer going to be considered.
All right, so to move this forward, I'm going to make a motion to amend that you insert at the end of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, on the 7th line, after the words agenda item quotation mark. So it's saying object to the consideration of the agenda item, add the words, and include a statement as to why he, she objects. If I receive a second, I'll talk about it. All right, hearing no second, the motion to amend fails. All right, so the main motion is before you, well, wait a minute. There is no motion, so I couldn't even,
Man, I'm sorry, I'm being a bad mayor pro tem tonight. That's
You
two
are.
things I should have caught.
I do.
all right.
I
so-
will make a motion to accept the changes to our town council rules of procedure as presented, ordinance 2017-19, chapter 1, article 1, section 3.
Second, since
All right, so let me.
Want to show your amendment again?
No, that's fine. Thank you, Greg.
We're gonna have that on the record. Lonely Island.
All right, so Rowe moved. Who did the second?
Alicia.
All right. All right. All those in favor of the motion to approve ordinance 2017-19 as presented in our packet, please show your hands. All opposed, same sign. Sanders votes against. All right, it does pass. All right, item 15. Discussion of items for future agendas to include agenda items for consideration on the September 12th, 2017 council agenda and items from the town council future agenda list. Council, I'll call your attention to, maybe it's page 264. My printer
That's the next meeting.
364.
That's the next meeting. 364, yeah. So, first of all, I'd like to add after item 2, an item 3 under reports for our council subcommittee on decorations and so on about new town hall. So we can come back and report to you.
Perfect.
All right. And then, in regular session, we need to add an item for a report and discussion with Dr. Warren of NISD, who's going to come to us at that meeting. If you have certain things you'd like for him to address, please send those to Holly. I asked for 2 items to be addressed. What are their plans for the redrawing of attendance boundaries, which we had discussion in the past? And the other item was, I can't remember, Holly, do you remember what it was? Anyway, it doesn't matter. If you come up with something, please email it to Holly and she can forward it to Dr. Warren. Did you find it?
I did. Any information on the progress of the redrawing attendance lines that might affect Trophy Club? Report on actual versus planned attendance numbers for this current school year.
Yeah, so if they say they're gonna have 800 at a campus, what do they really have? So I thought you might have an interest in those things based on past experience. If you have some stuff you'd like for him to address, please do so.
Yeah, you know what's interesting this year is for the first time they're actually requiring
Proof of residence, yeah.
citizen.
Oh, cool. That'll be interesting to see.
And then there are 2 other items.
I've got Schaffner renaming of the community pool. That will be on September 12th.
No.
Oh, okay.
Don't put his name by it.
That may
Staff.
be a future
Staff.
agenda item, but no. One other item is to consider and take appropriate action related to the grand opening of Town Hall on October 21st, or whatever that date is. So, yeah. So that we
Grand
can
opening.
discuss that if in fact there's going to be activities and how those are conducted and what happens with that. And then even though under reports, we had a committee report for the beautification of Town Hall and all that, add an agenda item, consider and take appropriate action on items related to the furnishings of Town Hall and the committee report. So if you choose to do something, you could decide on it. So those are all for the next agenda. Anybody else have something for the next agenda? Greg?
When you mention furnishings, that include the balance that's left and how we want to apply it?
Mine did not, but that's surely something that could be there.
Okay, so we
If
should
we're-
add that.
Obviously, if we're talking about, are we gonna buy X benches for the foyer and that's gonna be money. And so that would affect that dollar amount. So maybe that item ought to include a review of the balance in the contingency fund and any appropriate items. Does that seem to make sense to everyone? Anybody object to that? All right, yes, Eric.
So as much as I don't want to bring this up, Ms. Murphy brought it up tonight. Mr. Sheridan brought it up last meeting. Jim Perrow's brought it up many times. I know what I would like to do with the park. Do we need as council to give direction to staff? Because apparently, what the citizens are coming to us about, they've not been told what's going on with the park, so.
I think you bring up a very valid point. I asked Alice to come tonight and to say something, and I did that because my wife came back from a women's club meeting and said, guess what, they're talking about this, and I said, well, they need to get permission. Now, that's not what she exactly did tonight. And so, there are 2 things that are different topics. One is any additional engravings, and that gets divided into bricks, which there are a number of bricks in the path that did not get engraved, and then stones. Now, that doesn't affect the total design. It does say where do you do engraving, but it doesn't affect the design.
But who's in charge?
Absolutely. And so we have continued to say to those people who are interested in that, is that's a town decision. That's a council decision, or if we direct the town manager to make it. The other side of that is this issue that the Women's Club has, is that they had roughly $20,000 left in their budget that was from their initial fundraising that the Garden Club did for the memorial.
Don't you think this would be better as an agenda item, not?
I agree, and so my purpose was add it to future agenda. Now, if you want to do it at the next meeting, I'm okay with that, but I had it as a note to add the discussion to the future agenda.
As did I, so that's why I was.
So you want it not next meeting, but beyond that?
I'm fine with whatever you want to. It'd be fun to have it in the new building, though.
What exactly?
Okay, so let's add, if there's no objection, let's add to our future agenda list a discussion and appropriate action related to the Veterans Memorial.
That's fine.
Now, that's very open, but that gets us there.
Yeah, that's fair.
You got that, Holly? Anybody else then have something on pages 365 and 366?
I think that you can take off number 4.
Yes, you can.
No. And then probably number 5 after executive session.
Yeah, potentially, yep. Okay, Holly, you got that?
Yes, sir.
All right, any other items on 15? All right, hearing none, we're going to move to item 16, which is executive session, and it is 9:01 p.m. And as soon as I read what's required, we will convene into executive session. Pursuant to the following designated section of the Texas Government Code, annotated Chapter 551, Texas Open Meeting Act, the council will convene into executive session to discuss the following. Section 551.071, consultation with attorney under subsection 2, to consult with the town attorney on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with the Texas Open Meetings Act. 1, enforcement of ordinances. 2, installation of network nodes and node support poles. 3, enforcement of rights of contract. Item B, Section 551074, personnel matters under Section 1 to discuss or deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, crime control and prevention district, and review of town attorney. We are in closed session. Council, if you want to take a few-minute break, we'll do. It is 10:22 p.m. and we have reconvened into regular session. Item number 17, consider and take appropriate action regarding a resolution repealing resolution number 2016-19, appointing citizens to serve on the Crime Control and Prevention District Board, and adopting a new resolution making annual appointments, reaffirming existing appointments, and providing an effective date, Resolution 2017-15. Chair would recognize Councilmember Jensen for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 2017-15, reaffirming position 1, Thomas McLean, reaffirming position 2, Paul Glowacki, appointing position number 3, Carl Munger, expiring in 2018, reappointing position 4, Richard Savage, expiring in 2019, appointing Sarah Lepeka, position 5, expiring 2019, appointing position 6, Joe Talese, expiring 2019, and reappointing James Ursherwood, expiring 2019.
I'll second that.
I'd like to amend the motion. I'd like to amend to appoint Lou Pippery to place 3.
I'll second that.
So Councilmember Schaffner moved to amend, replacing Carl Munger with Lou Pippery. Is that correct?
Correct. To
And
place
it
3.
was seconded by Kurtz.
Correct.
All right, matters before us for discussion on the agenda only. All right, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion to amend, please show your hands. All opposed, say, Greg, did you vote?
Yeah.
I can't see you there. All opposed, same sign. All right, it does carry. Eric voted against, everybody else voted for. So the motion as amended is before us. Place 3 being Lou O'Pippery, 4 Savage, 5 I'll say that wrong, 6 Tolese, and 7 Isherwood. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion as amended, show your hands. All opposed, same sign. It does pass with 1 abstention, which was Jensen. All right. Item number 18, consider and take appropriate action regarding an ordinance adopting the design manual for the installation of network nodes and node support poles pursuant to Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 284. We're talking about ordinance 2017-20 as changed at the dais during executive session.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2017-20, adopting a design manual for installation of network nodes and node support poles, including amendment with reference to existing underground utility regulations in our right-of-way ordinance.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor, show your hands. All opposed, same sign. It is unanimous. It does carry. All right. Item 19, consider and take appropriate action regarding executive session. I don't believe we have anything else to take action upon. And so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All right, it is moved by Rowe, seconded by Lamont. All in favor, show your hands. We are adjourned at 10:46. Thank you, council.
Chocolates.